Hey guys, hope everyone's doing really good. It's go do your own research. So it's come to my attention Mark Williams-Thomas is back to grifting. Off the Nicola Bulley case. He's back to his old tricks again and has put out a TikTok suggesting that once again witnesses have come to him with some new information.
Over the last 48 hours, I've received from two separate people significant new information which may cast doubt on the narrative that we've been given that she accidentally fell into the water and that there may be other circumstances leading up to this event. So I don't know that much more than it at the moment. I've been given some critical information which I'm going to look at and investigate, and let's see where it takes me. It is interesting that actually the narrative that we've been told by the police may not be exactly what happened.
You don't need to be a police detective or an ex-police detective to know that there were huge inconsistencies in the narrative and timeline that was stated at the inquest and what was said in news reports and in the BBC documentary, which Nicola's own family and partner, Paul Ansell, participated in. The timeline never added up. There were witness reports of apparent screams heard at the time she apparently died. There was the work meeting Zoom call that was left running on her phone. Conflicting reports about where the phone and dog lead were found. And not one person or vehicle saw her walking on a very busy road, which mysteriously had its name changed on Google Maps during the investigation, on her way to the river. Officially, her cause of death was registered as drowning. Although her autopsy showed she had bruising on different parts of her body, there were no signs of her falling into the river on the bank. And the point where she was meant to have entered the river was very shallow. Nicola was a good swimmer and there was so much that didn't make sense. And instances where the police contradicted themselves, leaving many people to question the official version of events, myself included. Mark Williams-Thomas has made a TV career out of claiming to have exposed Jimmy Savile, but that's not even true. After a brief time in CID, he left the police for undisclosed reasons, but he was known for selling confidential information he found on suspected criminal activity to the media. He was consulted on a Newsnight program about Jimmy Savile while he was still alive as an expert on how pedophiles operate. This is according to Wikipedia. And he developed a TV career out of working for Simon Cowell, and they both worked with and were friends with Max Clifford, a former publicist who went to jail for being a pedo, and his crimes were exposed as a result of Operation Nutri. A criminal investigation, Mark said, was set up after the Jimmy Savile documentary he presented was aired. So he's exposing Savile and his friend is doing the same crimes all along. And after the Nicola Bulley case, he went to Tenerife and inserted himself in the disappearance of Jay Slater and started a narrative that Jay Slater was involved in illicit drug trafficking. He recorded phone conversations with witnesses without their consent and upset Jay Slater's family, whilst claiming to be working on their behalf. He was hoping to make a documentary, which never came to light. And none of his theories were correct, and the information he claimed to have was no different from what was being reported. So now there's this new TikTok he's made about Nicola Bulley, and it's received way more views than most of his recent posts. Just as with Jay Slater in 2023, he claimed to be working for the family in a video posted by the Mail.
I've been in contact with the family and they've specifically asked me, very gratefully, if I could come up and have a look.
And it just happened to be the same time Paul Ansell, her partner, gave a lecture at the London School of Economics on being a victim of media scrutiny, shedding light on how mass media can affect individuals during personal tragedy, and being under intense media scrutiny, particularly from social media platforms like TikTok, as part of a broader discussion titled Mass Media Justice and Me, where Ansell reflects on the challenges faced by victims and their families in the public eye, as if Paul Ansell has forgotten the numerous appearances he chose to make on mass media, thanking the public and contradicting the narrative that was coming from the police.
Just focus, just like I say, it's just about the girls, that's it. I'm there for them. I don't want to really elaborate on that. I don't want to take my eye off that.
It must be heartwarming to see the public response. Hundreds of people trying to help.
It's amazing. It is. Right now, it's the only thing that we can take is, that level of support is out of this world. It gives us a great amount of comfort knowing that that's going on. They don't have anything else, do we?
Well,
it's been 10 days now since Nicola went missing. I have two little girls who miss their mummy desperately, and we need her back. It's been such a tough time for the girls especially, but also for me, all of Nicky's family and friends, as well as the wider community. I want to thank them for their love and support. We're also really grateful to Peter and his team from SGI for coming up and helping support the work of Lancashire Police as they continue their investigation. Their support is amazing. If anyone has any information which could help find Nicky, I urge them please to get in touch with the police, help us provide the answers that we all so badly need. We have to find her safe and well. I can't put those girls to bed again tonight with no answers. Thank you. For me, personally, and again, this is just my opinion, I'm 100% convinced it's not the river. People don't just vanish into thin air. It's absolutely impossible. So something has happened. Something has happened. Find out what it is. Find out what it is. My plea now is, personally, I want every house, every garage, every outbuilding, the land scrutinised. I want it all searched. I want it all scrutinised. Every piece of it. And I'm just pleading with them. Just please. Anything, no matter how tiny. Just please, just come forward with it. Please. Because that could be the key to finding her.
Are you comfortable, Paul?
Yeah, I think so.
It's also a little odd that neither Paul Ansell or Mark Williams-Thomas have said anything about Peter Faulding and the sonar imagery video showing a body he believed to be Nicola taken just 6 minutes into his search of the zone near the bench area of the River Wyre, which the police said had already been searched and cleared. He's shown a text he sent to the police about it and had the video footage independently verified. They were the ones that made public call-outs, inviting him to participate in the search. Mark called him a very close friend.
Peter Faulding is a very close friend of mine.
And in his reports repeated the same talking points as him and Paul.
Paul says that the harness was found on the riverbank here, and other people say that the harness was found a distance between the river and the bench. What is striking is that if you look at this river, there is very little movement in it. Just at the edge here, at a depth of probably about a foot and a half, it's full of stones. So if she did go in, her first port would be to hit the stones, but actually if you end up even in there, you're not going to move. Even if there's a bit of flow on here, I cannot see her body having been moved.
With every hour that passes, Nicola's family and loved ones' heartache deepens. What we need now from the police is clear evidence, clear words, and proper investigation. Not just in terms of looking for Nicola through the CCTV, but also let's get the experts in. Let's get the experts to do the water so that we know definitively she hasn't been in there.
We've involved a range of specialists, both locally, regionally and nationally. The investigation has not wanted at any stage for experts who are the best in their field available to law enforcement in the UK.
Peter Faulding wasn't asked to present his evidence at the inquest, including the sonar imagery he believed to be of Nicola's body in the river, and then his name was removed from an official police partner list. He felt like there was a smear campaign against him, and so to defend himself he took to social media.
An independent expert has confirmed that having viewed the never-before-seen footage, he believes Mr. Faulding did find a body in the river at St Michael's on Wyre, and crucially, it measures 5 foot 3 inches, approximately the same height as Nicola. The College of Policing, who in November 2023 published a 140-page independent review into the case, stand by their report. They insisted that the police divers searched the area Mr. Faulding flagged. They also reiterated that they then got an expert view from an unnamed leading government sonar specialist who told them that they had low confidence that the images were that of a human casualty. Mr. Faulding has also shared new information of the Wyre's slow-moving and shallow water during the search, which he and other experts believe calls into question claims that Miss Bulley could have been swept away. Peter Faulding has urged detectives to look again at the case, declaring Lancashire police always suggested that Nicola fell in front of the bench, but this is impossible due to the shallow depth right at the bottom of the bank below the bench.
We would ask that people in the wider community, particularly on social media and online, do not speculate as to what may have happened to Nicola. This is particularly hurtful to her family, to her children, to her partner Paul, her parents, her sister, and her friends. Because it's not helpful to them, it's distressing, and it's distracting for the police inquiry.
I still haven't understood how what happens on social media can affect what happens in a police inquiry. Surely it's based on factual evidence. The media is allowed to hold the police accountable, and they kept giving out misinformation and speculating on what happened by announcing their working hypothesis.
Our main working hypothesis, therefore, is that Nicola has sadly fallen into the river, that there is no third party or criminal involvement, and that this is not suspicious, but a tragic case of a missing person. This is particularly important because speculation otherwise can be really distressing for the family.
At the start of a missing person inquiry, you don't release your working hypothesis to the media. Why do you need to release it? Well, you don't. This is a new thing that's happening, and quite a few people have asked me that question. It didn't used to happen. I don't know why it's happening now. Don't speculate. There's no need to at the start of your inquiries, and speculation only encourages other people to speculate, and that's the problem. So establish the facts first of all.
19 days after she vanished during a riverside dog walk, police investigating the disappearance of Nicola Bulley have revealed the 45-year-old suffered from significant issues with alcohol brought on by her ongoing struggles with the menopause. In an earlier press conference, officers said Miss Bulley had been classed as a high-risk individual since the beginning of the search.
Their performance yesterday was shocking. Not only in the fact that they released that she was a high-risk misper at the press conference and then refused to explain what that was about. How did they think that they could release a piece of information like that and journalists, investigators weren't going to say, what are you talking about? And as that built up over the day, and when I spoke to the police yesterday, before lunch, and I said to them, listen, I've got information that something has gone on within the family environment, that there has been emergency service at the address. What are you going to do about this? Can you please confirm that that's true or not? And as a result of that, they then, early afternoon, evening, released that information to say that there have been issues in Nicola's life.
The public rightly had questions about how this became such an international story, with often such negative headlines, and also with regard to the disclosure of Nicola's most personal and private details.
One of the decisions which has arguably the most significant impact on public confidence was the release of personal information about Nicola's health. We found that due process was followed in this decision and that it was lawful, but we are in no doubt that releasing this information in the manner the constabulary did was both avoidable and unnecessary. Whilst there is substantial learning for the constabulary, there are also findings and recommendations for policing nationally. The review found the wider relationship between the police and the media to be fractured and identified that action needs to be taken on all sides to help build trust. The impact of social media on policing was illustrated starkly, and the significance for investigations and public confidence must also be acknowledged.
The independent inquiry by the College of Police was headed up by former police commissioner and a very smug man, Andrew Snowden, who's now a Tory MP. So he's now involved in decision making for us in the Houses of Parliament.
And the reason that we've commissioned the review is because, yes, it is good practice when such a major story has come out and there's been such public concern to address that public concern and ask the questions and get somebody independent to come in. I'm also concerned that in a modern policing era, in a policing investigation that was sadly correct in its hypothesis all the way along, in which officers predicted correctly, very sadly, even the day that Nicola's body would tragically be found. And yet it became such a story, particularly in the national papers, about bungling, incompetent cops, yet they were right all along. So how did the police lose control of that narrative? And I'm grateful to outlets like the Lancashire Post, BBC Radio Lancashire, Lancashire Telegraph, Blackpool Gazette, all who were very measured and sensible in their reporting and listened to what the police were saying. But that wasn't the case with a lot of the national newspapers. And then this became an internationalized, sensationalized story. And TikTok in particular, and online amateur detectives pushing conspiracy theories out, which resulted in vile abuse towards Nicola's family and friends. How did that get so out of hand? And that is one of the clear work streams for the review of the College of Policing.
How did the police know the exact date the body would be found if they didn't know there was a body? And how does that relate to a psychic medium, Jason Dean Rothwell, who lives 50 miles away, where he just happened to be walking that day and spotted something in the river because the road had the same name as his dog who just died or something, going to the exact spot where Nicola's body was found in the reeds, a mile away from the bench area where she was last seen. And why can he not give a direct answer to a single question?
So Nicola gives you the indication that, or tells you, this is the day that you should be there for me. Just on the day itself then, Jason, how did the day start? Because you've got a specific way of getting yourself ready for events like this.
Nicola, I mean, I will never ever forget this. One of the first things that Nicola said in our conversations to me was, listen for the song of a dead rabbit. And I was like, but dead rabbits don't sing. They might squish, but they don't sing. When we got in the car that morning, Bright Eyes from Watership Down was the very first song that came on the radio. And I turned to my friend and said, are you ready for what we're about to do? And my friend said, that song is about a dead rabbit. And I'm like, I am aware. We're about to go find a body. Are you okay with that? We drove there. We sat very quietly. And without fancying it up, we got out of the car and I said, well, let's just walk that way because we need to go and stand on the corner that I had pointed out. And I had always said to my friend from the very moment she asked me to connect and what have you, we would be stood on this particular corner and this is where we would find her. And we walked up to the bend in the river and just stood there. And she said, well, what do we do now? And I said, well, we just wait a few minutes. And then...
sorry, Jason, this is a stretch of the river that had been searched many times by the police.
Many times. Not only searched as in dived and searched with surface searches, i.e. a boat and people with sticks prodding in the bottom, but was daily walked by the police. Constantly, every day there were officers walking up and down. It's curious because this is where I query the police's commitment, because to say this was the day that everybody had apparently decided in the police force she was most likely to be located, I didn't see a single police officer that morning, not anywhere in St Michael's, even as we passed through it. I would have imagined the river should have been swarming with people if what I later found out was true, but it wasn't. And this very small object came floating down, and my friend sort of said, is that a football? And I just said to her, no, it's not a football, that's a body.
Tell me you're a scammer without telling me you're a scammer. You use generative AI to make images of dead people, a woman in a black puffer coat on a bench by a river with dead rabbits floating in the sky, and make it into a reel to post on Facebook to advertise your business and whatever this is. Or this, because that's what Jason Rothwell did. He's literally been called out in the comments of this video by Beneath the Surface UK, who Jason talks about, who writes, "We did not receive any contact or information from this individual, nor were we told where to die." Is that the same thing that happened with Nicola? The question the podcast host, a criminologist and a former producer at This Morning, did not ask. Instead, they wanted his opinion on another case of a missing person over in the US called Nancy Guthrie. Probably because that's very big in the algorithm right now. This is a commercially produced podcast called This Much Is True Crime, which claims to explore the most talked about topics in crime. They also state on their official website, anyone can talk about these, not according to Lancashire Police, but few have the experience and insight of our hosts. And being the experienced expert is what Mark Williams-Thomas trades onto his audience, to put down other content creators that do the same thing as him and use rumours or conspiracy theories where there's a lack of information to keep interest.
There are three hypotheses, not just one, there are three, and that is that Nicola came here and that she ended up in the water, which is of course has been the police's main hypothesis, but there are two others, that she left voluntarily on her own for whatever reason, things in her life, and the third one of course is the most sinister, that there was a third party involvement.
And that brings us nicely on to Break the Ice, another YouTube channel hosted by Luke. If anyone has milked the death of Nicola Bulley, it's him. He started off just like everyone else talking about the case, then somehow became a mouthpiece for Peter Faulding, who asked him to make a documentary to help launch his book, What Lies Beneath. Luke's an interesting choice to make a documentary, given at the time I think he said he was a chef and his channel was really small, just mainly him talking on his iPhone, when Peter Faulding is friends with experienced documentary makers like Mark Williams-Thomas. So it's interesting to see that Mark reposted Peter's post on LinkedIn promoting Luke from Break the Ice, when Mark Williams-Thomas has been so critical of armchair detectives who make conspiracy theory content, which is exactly what Luke at Break the Ice does. He's also collaborated with some of the same people as Mark, like convicted financial fraudster and pills dealer Sean Atwood, and another ex-copper who claims to be busting a pedo ring, although we've never seen any evidence to verify it, John Wedger. These are the people that are supposed to be exposing criminals. Interesting that he's also reposted an article stating that GB News has overtaken Sky News as Britain's #1 commercial channel in 2025. These are the same people that complain about not getting commissions or making enough money anymore. Peter Faulding is also a regular guest on GB News, a privately owned media channel that promotes right-wing politics propaganda on behalf of Reform UK. This channel actively promotes misogyny. It's been fined by regulators and abuse towards migrants, but are also obsessed with freedom of speech, and they don't want digital ID. But stirring up hate online is one of the exact issues Andrew Snowden spoke of, which he said led to Nicola Bulley's friends and family becoming a target of online abuse. Just this week, YouTube was found liable for social media addiction and harming mental health of its users in a landmark trial. It's not exactly a secret, but it creates a deliberately harmful and addictive product to sustain an audience, a user base, and to maximize revenue. There is many financial incentives on these platforms with little regard for safeguarding users. There's the memberships, the super chats, the subscription fees, and sponsored posts, etc. It's basically a safe space for financial fraudsters to thrive, especially when they all team up together and block anyone that wants to call them out and cultivate troll farms to do their dirty work for them. With all that being said, I would genuinely like to know from an independent source who was lying about Nicola and how she got in that river.